Hi, welcome back to Joe Blogs. In today's episode, I want to provide you with an update on the situation in Russia. It's been reported that Yevgeny Prigozhin, who's the leader of the Wagner Mercenary Group, has died in a plane crash when the jet he was travelling on has mysteriously crashed to the ground. Over the course of the last 18 months, Yevgeny Prigozhin has been a high-profile and outspoken individual who was very close to President Putin between March 22 and June 23, and the Wagner mercenary forces were used at the forefront of a lot of the battles. However, 2 months ago, the relationship soured when Prigozhin accused Russia of not supporting Wagner and actually of killing some of his troops when missiles went astray. And as a direct result of this, Prigozhin actually ordered the Wagner troops to about turn and march on Moscow. Now, this caused major concern in the Kremlin, and it was reported that the Wagner troops got within 100 miles of Moscow before Prigozhin had a change of heart and decided to call off the revolution. As you might imagine, President Putin was not particularly impressed with this course of action, and the Wagner forces were removed from the front line, and Yevgeny Prigozhin was exiled to Belarus. So in today's video, we'll have a look at the details of the crash. We'll then have a look at Yevgeny Prigozhin's denouncement of the war, the turning point when he decided that Russia was not supporting Wagner. We'll then have a look at the failed uprising by Wagner, President Putin's response, and as it now appears that Yevgeny Prigozhin is dead, we'll have a look at his life story before I wrap up with my summary as to what I think is going on here. Yevgeny Prigozhin was listed as a passenger on a private jet which crashed on Wednesday the 23rd of August in the north of Moscow with no survivors, the Russian authorities have announced. And Rosaviatsia, Russia's aviation agency, have announced that an investigation has been launched into an Embraer plane crash that occurred on Wednesday in the Tver region. According to the passenger list, the name and surname of Yevgeny Prigozhin is amongst them. And Russia's emergency situations minister said in a statement that the aircraft travelling from Moscow to St. Petersburg had crashed near the village of Kozenkino. It said that 10 people had been on board, including 3 crew members, and according to preliminary information, everybody on board has been killed. Unconfirmed Russian media reports said Dmitry Utkin, Prigozhin's right-hand man, was also on board, and that Prigozhin and his associates had attended a meeting with officials from the Russian Defense Ministry. Soon after the plane dropped out of the sky, a second private jet linked to Prigozhin, which also appeared to be heading to St. Petersburg, Prigozhin's home base, turned back to Moscow, flight tracking data showed. The Flight Radar 24 online tracker showed that the Embraer Legacy 600 had dropped off the radar at 6:11 local time. An unverified clip posted to social media showed a plane resembling a private jet falling out of the sky towards the earth. I'm not showing that clip on this video because YouTube does not like things like that. If YouTube becomes aware that people have died in a clip that's shown in any of the videos, then those videos will be censored. The cause of the crash is not immediately clear, but Prigozhin's long-standing feud with the military and the armed uprising he led in June could potentially have provided a motive, and media channels linked to Wagner quickly suggested that a Russian air defense missile had shot the plane down. Interestingly, Prigozhin released a video earlier this week in which he claimed to be in Africa, where his mercenaries have relocated since the abortive uprising, but it was unclear when the video was taken and if he had returned to Russia since it was filmed. Wagner Play, a Telegram channel which had supported Prigozhin's June rebellion, has posted a message which reads, "Now there are rumours about the death of the head of Wagner, Yevgeny Prigozhin. We directly say we suspect Kremlin officials led by Putin in an attempt to kill him. If the information about the death of Prigozhin is confirmed, we will organise the second March of Justice to Moscow. It would be better for him to be alive. It's in your interests."
The head of Russia's Wagner Group mercenary organization is, for the first time, publicly rejecting Moscow's official justification for the war in Ukraine, saying the reason for the invasion was based on lies, running directly counter to President Putin's own statements, and marking a new milestone in the months-long feud between the Wagner founder, Yevgeny Prigozhin, and Russia's top military brass. This is part of Prigozhin's video, which was posted on Telegram.
Why was the war needed? The war was needed so that a handful of scumbags could have a blast and get PR attention showing how strong the army is. The war was needed not in order to return Russian citizens to our bosom, and not in order to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. It was needed for one star with additional embroidery, so that one mentally sick man could look good on a coffin pillow. Shoigu lives by the principle that a lie must be horrific for people to believe it. That's when the lies come.
Prigozhin's referring to Russia's defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, a constant target of his criticism. He's often accused Shoigu and other military leaders of incompetence, but rejecting the core reasons for the war is new for Prigozhin. He says Shoigu's deceiving President Putin, and that the war was also used to enrich the ruling elite. Prigozhin also specifically uses the word war in the video, not the phrase special military operation used by the Kremlin. Prigozhin's enjoyed unusual freedom in publicly criticizing Moscow, although not Putin himself, whom he relies on for support.
Yevgeny Prigozhin has posted a number of videos on Telegram accusing the Russian military of killing Wagner operatives and stating that 25,000 Wagner fighters are en route to oust the leaders of the defence establishment in Moscow. In one of the posts he stated, "Those who destroyed our lads, who destroyed the lives of many tens of thousands of Russian soldiers, will be punished. I ask that no one offer resistance. There are 25,000 of us and we are going to figure out why chaos is happening in the country," he said, promising to tackle any checkpoints or air forces that got in Wagner's way. At around 2 a.m. on Saturday morning, Moscow time, he issued another message saying his forces had crossed the border from Ukraine and were in the southern city of Rostov. He said they were ready to go all the way against the top brass and to destroy anyone who stood in their way. At around the same time, the Russian news agency TASS quoted Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov as saying all Russian main security services were reporting to Putin round the clock on the fulfillment of his orders with respect to Prigozhin. Security was being tightened in Moscow, TASS said, focusing on what is called the capital's most important government sites and infrastructure. These messages followed earlier statements from Prigozhin, in which he said that the Kremlin's rationale for invading Ukraine was based on lies concocted by the army's top brass. It's been reported that the Russian SFB Domestic Security Service has opened a criminal case against Prigozhin for calling for an armed mutiny, a crime punishable with a jail term of up to 20 years. Army Lieutenant General Vladimir Alekesyov issued a video appeal asking Prigozhin to reconsider his actions. "Only the president has the right to appoint the top leadership of the armed forces, and you are trying to encroach on his authority," he said. Army General Sergei Surovikin, the deputy commander of Russian forces in Ukraine, who's previously praised Prigozhin, said in a separate video that the enemy is just waiting for our internal political situation to deteriorate. "Before it is too late, you must submit to the will and order of the People's President of the Russian Federation. Stop the columns and return them to their permanent bases," he said. The administration of the Voronezh region on the M4 motorway between the regional capital Rostov-on-Don and Moscow said on Telegram that a military convoy was on the highway and urged residents to avoid using it. Unverified footage posted on social media showed a convoy of assorted military vehicles, including at least one tank and one armoured vehicle on flatbed trucks. Footage on channels based in Rostov-on-Don showed armed men in military uniforms skirting the regional police headquarters in the city on foot, as well as tanks positioned outside the headquarters of the southern military district. In another video, Prigozhin confirmed that he had led his fighters out of Ukraine to Rostov and posted footage of himself seemingly relaxed, conversing with two generals at the headquarters of Russia's huge southern military district. The video showed him telling the generals, "We have arrived here, we want to receive the chief of the general staff and Shoigu. Unless they come, we'll be here, we'll blockade the city of Rostov and head for Moscow," which appeared to be a reference to the military convoy trying to make the 750-mile drive towards Moscow, ostensibly to topple the military leadership. Russian local officials said a military convoy was indeed on the main motorway, linking the southern part of European Russia with Moscow, and warned residents to avoid it. In response to the Wagner uprising, Russian President Vladimir Putin has vowed to crush what he called an armed mutiny. In an emergency televised address, Putin said the excessive ambitions and vested interests have led to treason and called the mutiny a stab in the back. "It's a blow to Russia, to our people, and our actions to defend the fatherland against such a threat will be harsh. All those who deliberately stepped on the path of betrayal, who prepared an armed insurrection, who took the path of blackmail and terrorist methods, will suffer inevitable punishment, will answer both to the law and to our people, he said. According to Russian media, a plan known as Operation Fortress has been activated in the city of Rostov-on-Don, which lies about 100 kilometers east of the Ukrainian border. Essentially, it's a plan for personnel to be in full readiness. The plan has also reportedly been activated in Moscow, which would ensure Kremlin buildings are protected. While the exact actions are a state secret, there are reports that entrances and exits to the Interior Ministry building are currently blocked and military vehicles have been positioned in some Moscow locations. Yevgeny Prigozhin was born on the 1st of June 1961 in St. Petersburg. At 18 years of age, he was caught stealing and given a suspended sentence, and 2 years later he was convicted of robbery and fraud and sentenced to 12 years imprisonment. He spent the following 9 years in prison but was later pardoned and was released in 1990. Immediately following his release from prison, he sold hot dogs alongside his mother in St. Petersburg. And during the 1990s, he was involved in the establishment and expansion of a variety of different businesses following the breakup of the Soviet Union. In 1995, Prigozhin entered the restaurant business and founded a floating restaurant on a boat that became one of the most fashionable dining spots in the whole of Russia. And it was whilst running this restaurant that he first became associated with President Putin and was later referred to as Putin's chef.
Yevgeny Prigozhin is a complex man with a complex history and very complex ambitions. He served a 10-year sentence for violent crimes that he committed in St. Petersburg as a young man. He worked in hard labor camps, and when he came out, he kind of transformed himself into this kind of mafia entrepreneur.
One of his first ventures was a catering company that fed the Kremlin. Prigozhin became known as Putin's chef. Cooking up disinformation came next with the Internet Research Agency, a troll farm which was instrumental in Russia's interference in the 2016 U.S. election. Prigozhin has now transformed into warlord under the auspices of Vladimir Putin. He's used social media to accelerate his brand. Videos show him overseeing training sites. He appeals to new recruits with ultra-nationalist propaganda.
Guys, sign up for Wagner Group private military company. World War III is already nigh.
On the battlefield, he flaunts the coffins of dead Ukrainian soldiers. And he brazenly calls out Russia's Ministry of Defense for the death of his fighters, hurling insults at the defense minister and chief of staff and calling them out by name.
We have a 70% shortage of ammunition. Shoigu, Gerasimov, where is the ammunition? Look at them.
So what's the summary and conclusion today? Well, I wanted to post this video really to let you know what's happened to Yevgeny Prigozhin. Throughout the war in Ukraine, Prigozhin has been a very high-profile individual. He's been at the forefront of the war, both literally in person, but also his group of mercenaries, which number tens of thousands, have been right at the front of all of the battles. And over the course of the first 12 months of the war, things were going to plan. Yevgeny Prigozhin and President Putin were in cahoots, they were very close, and everything was fine and dandy in terms of their relationship. But unfortunately, over the course of the last 6 months, Yevgeny Prigozhin has become more outspoken. He's been posting a variety of videos on Telegram, aiming barbs and criticism at some of the senior military officials in Russia. And in June 2023, this criticism culminated in a meltdown where Prigozhin accused the Russian authorities of killing some of his men. And as a result of that, he threatened a revolution. He instructed the Wagner troops to reverse their attack on Ukraine and to head to Moscow to take control of the country. Now, for whatever reason, before the troops got to Moscow, Prigozhin changed his mind and called the revolution off. But as you might imagine, President Putin was not impressed with everything that had been going on. And as a direct result, Wagner were removed from the front line and Yevgeny Prigozhin was exiled to Belarus. Now, all of that took place around 2 months ago, and over the course of the last 2 months, we haven't really heard a lot about Yevgeny Prigozhin. However, as we've talked about in today's video, it's now been announced that a jet that he was flying in between Moscow and St. Petersburg has crashed, and it looks like he has died. Now, as it stands right now, we don't have any confirmation as to why that jet blew up. But the conspiracy theories are obviously linking the fact that Yevgeny Prigozhin fell out with President Putin, he organised a mini-revolution, and whilst we don't have any details as to why this jet suddenly dropped out of the sky, it does seem quite coincidental to have happened within a short space of time of the failed revolution. So as I said right at the start of the video, I wanted to keep you posted on this latest news because I thought you'd be interested to hear about it. If you've liked what I've said today, then please give me a thumbs up. Thank you for watching this video all the way through to the end, and here's something to put a smile on your face.